What if I told you that hidden within the Bible are literary patterns so sophisticated that modern scholars are still uncovering them today? Not mystical codes or conspiracy theories, but real, documented discoveries that reveal the incredible artistry and intention behind these ancient texts. I'm referring to acrostic poems that spell out secret messages, numerical patterns that create meaning beyond the words themselves, and literary structures so complex that they weren't fully understood until computer analysis became possible. Today, we're diving into biblical mysteries, what scholars actually discovered, the fascinating world of biblical scholarship where archaeology meets linguistics and ancient wisdom reveals itself through modern research methods. From the hidden acrostic in Psalm 119 to the recently discovered chiastic structures that span entire books, we'll explore discoveries that have transformed how biblical scholars understand these texts. These aren't Dan Brown fantasies. They're peer-reviewed findings from universities like Harvard, Oxford, and Hebrew University of Jerusalem. By the end of this video, you'll understand why biblical studies is one of the most exciting fields in humanities research right now, and how these discoveries are changing our understanding of ancient literature forever. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's uncover what 2,000 years of scholarship have revealed about one of history's most influential texts. Part 1. The Art of Ancient Hebrew Poetry. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. Psalm 119. On the surface, it's a 176-verse prayer about following God's law. But here's what makes it extraordinary. It's a massive acrostic poem where each section begins with the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet. But wait, it gets better. Each Hebrew letter gets exactly 8 verses, and scholars have discovered that the themes and imagery in each section somehow relate to the symbolic meaning of that Hebrew letter in ancient tradition. We're talking about a level of literary sophistication that rivals anything in world literature. Take the Aleph section, the first letter, which represents strength and leadership. The verses talk about being blameless and walking in God's ways. The Beth section, representing a house or dwelling, focuses on storing God's word in your heart. This pattern continues for all 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Dr. Robert Alter from UC Berkeley, one of the world's leading experts on biblical literature, calls this the most sophisticated example of acrostic poetry in ancient literature. The mathematical precision, combined with theological depth, suggests a level of editorial planning that challenges everything we thought we knew about how these texts were composed. But Psalm 119 isn't alone. Psalm 145 is another complete alphabetic acrostic, and there are partial acrostics scattered throughout the Hebrew Bible. Proverbs 31 verses 10 to 31, the famous woman of valor passage, is also a complete acrostic describing the ideal wife, with each verse beginning with the next Hebrew letter. Here's where it gets really interesting. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, they included versions of these psalms that were nearly identical to what we have today. This suggests these complex literary structures were preserved with incredible accuracy across centuries of hand copying. Modern computational analysis has revealed even more layers. Dr. John Hobbins from Yale has shown that many biblical poems use what's called envelope structure, where beginning and end mirror each other thematically. The middle often contains a core message, creating what scholars call a literary sandwich. For example, Psalm 23 follows this pattern. It begins and ends with God as shepherd and host, while the middle verse about walking to the valley of death creates the emotional and theological center. This wasn't accidental. It was sophisticated literary architecture. The Israelites were doing things with poetry that wouldn't be seen again in literature until much later. They were creating multi-layered meanings through wordplay, numerical patterns, and structural elements that modern readers completely miss without understanding Hebrew. What's remarkable is that these discoveries keep coming. Just in the past decade, computer analysis has revealed previously unknown patterns in biblical poetry. Dr. Gary Rensburg at Rutgers has identified dozens of new examples of wordplay that work only in Hebrew, suggesting these texts were composed by literary masters who understood their craft at the highest level. Part 2. Archaeological Revelations. Now, let's talk about what archaeologists have been digging up, literally, that's revolutionizing our understanding of biblical texts. The discoveries in the past 50 years have been absolutely game-changing. In 1993, archaeologists working at Tel Dan in northern Israel found something extraordinary, a stone inscription from the 9th century BC that mentions the House of David. This was the first archaeological evidence outside the Bible for King David's dynasty. Dr. Abraham Byron, who led the excavation, called it the find of a lifetime. But that's just the beginning. The Tel Dan inscription was written in Aramaic by enemies of Israel, celebrating their victory over the king of Israel and the king of the house of David. This external confirmation of biblical narratives has forced scholars to reconsider how historically reliable these ancient texts might be. Even more spectacular was a 2008 discovery at Khirbet Jaffa, a fortified city that archaeologist Dr. Yosef Garfinkel from Hebrew University believes is the biblical Sha'araim. They found a pottery shard with Hebrew writing dating to around 1000 BC, right around the time of King David. The inscription includes words like judge, slave, and king, suggesting a sophisticated legal and political system, exactly when the Bible claims it existed. Here's what's fascinating. The archaeological evidence isn't just confirming biblical accounts. It's revealing the sophisticated international world these texts emerge from. The 2019 discovery of cuneiform tablets at Kenesh in Turkey showed that merchants were conducting international trade using contracts and legal procedures remarkably similar to those described in biblical law codes. Dr. Cale Knoll from Drew University has pointed out that biblical legal texts show awareness of international legal traditions from across the ancient Near East. The famous eye for an eye principle appears in the Code of Hammurabi centuries before it shows up in Exodus, but the biblical version includes innovations that suggest sophisticated legal thinking. The Dead Sea Scrolls continue to yield surprises. In 2017, researchers using multispectral imaging discovered previously invisible text on scroll fragments. Dr. Oren Abelman from Hebrew University found fragments of Deuteronomy that include variants not found in any other manuscripts, giving us new windows into how these texts were transmitted and preserved. Perhaps most intriguingly, recent analysis of the scrolls has revealed that the community at Qumran was using sophisticated calendar calculations and astronomical observations. The Astronomical Book of Enoch, found among the scrolls, contains remarkably accurate calculations of lunar and solar cycles that wouldn't be replicated in other cultures for centuries. Professor James Vanderkam from the University of Notre Dame has shown that the Qumran community was essentially doing advanced mathematics to calculate religious festivals and prophetic timelines. They were tracking 364-day solar years alongside lunar months, creating complex intercalation systems that demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. The Tel Rehav excavations have yielded another stunning discovery: perfectly preserved beehives from the 10th century BCE. This confirms biblical references to the land of milk and honey weren't just metaphorical. They reflect actual economic and agricultural practices. Dr. Amihai Mazar's team found evidence of large-scale honey production exactly where and when biblical texts describe it. What's emerging from all this archaeology is a picture of the biblical world as far more literate, sophisticated, and internationally connected than previously imagined. The Tel Arad ostraca, pottery shards with Hebrew writing, show that literacy extended well beyond elite scribes into military and administrative ranks. Recent discoveries at Lachish have uncovered a massive archive of Hebrew letters from just before the Babylonian conquest. These aren't religious texts. They're military correspondence, supply requests, and administrative documents. They show that Hebrew writing was widespread and that the biblical accounts of complex political and military situations reflect real historical circumstances. All of this archaeological evidence isn't proving the Bible is historically accurate in every detail. That's not how archaeology works. But it's revealing that biblical texts emerge from a sophisticated literary culture with deep historical roots, international connections, and remarkable preservation traditions. Part 3. Modern Discoveries in Digital Analysis. The The digital revolution has transformed biblical studies in ways no one could have predicted. Computational analysis is revealing patterns that human readers simply cannot detect across thousands of verses and multiple languages. Dr. Moshe Koppel at Bar-Ilan University has used machine learning to analyze authorship patterns in biblical texts. His algorithms can distinguish between different writing styles with remarkable accuracy, providing new evidence for debates about composite authorship that have raged for centuries. The computer analysis suggests some biblical books show consistent authorial voices, while others clearly combine multiple sources. Exactly what traditional scholarship suspected, but couldn't prove definitively. The Accordance Bible Software Project has digitized thousands of ancient manuscripts, allowing scholars to compare textual variants across centuries of copying. Dr. Peter Gurry at Phoenix Seminary has used this database to track how specific phrases and words change over time, revealing the incredible care ancient scribes took to preserve these texts accurately. Perhaps most exciting is the work being done with artificial intelligence to reconstruct damaged manuscripts. Google's AI division has partnered with biblical scholars to restore texts from fragmentary papyri and damaged scrolls. In 2024, they successfully reconstructed portions of gospel manuscripts that had been considered permanently lost. The Hebrew University's Digital Humanities Lab has created interactive maps showing how biblical place names correspond to archaeological sites, revealing migration patterns and trade routes that illuminate the historical context of biblical narratives. Dr. Oded Lipschitz has shown how biblical geography reflects real ancient political boundaries and economic networks. Cross-cultural computational analysis has revealed something remarkable. Biblical literary techniques appear in other ancient Near Eastern texts, but with distinctive innovations. The Israelites weren't working in isolation. They were part of an international literary culture, but they were also pushing the boundaries of what was possible with ancient writing systems. What we've discovered is that the Bible is even more remarkable than traditional faith perspectives or skeptical dismissals typically suggest. These aren't just ancient religious texts. They're sophisticated literary achievements that reveal a complex, literate, internationally connected ancient world. The hidden acrostics, the archaeological confirmations, the digital discoveries, they all point to something extraordinary. Texts that were crafted with incredible care, preserved with remarkable accuracy, and created by people who understood their craft at the highest possible level. But here's what I find most fascinating. Every discovery raises 10 new questions. The more we learn, the more mysterious and complex these ancient texts become. We're not solving the Bible's puzzles. We're discovering that the puzzles are far more intricate than we ever imagined. For those of you interested in diving deeper, I highly recommend Robert Alter's translations of biblical poetry, which reveal the literary artistry in ways most translations miss. The Archaeological Study Bible provides excellent connections between discoveries and texts. And if you're technically inclined, the Digital Dead Sea Scrolls Project at the Israel Museum offers high-resolution access to manuscripts you can examine yourself. The field of biblical studies is more exciting now than it's ever been. We're living through a golden age of discovery where archaeology, linguistics, computer science, and literary analysis are converging to reveal new dimensions of these ancient texts. What fascinates you most about these discoveries? Are you more intrigued by the literary patterns, the archaeological evidence, or the digital analysis? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one and often feature the best discussions in future videos. If this kind of evidence-based exploration of ancient texts interests you, you'll definitely want to subscribe. Next week, we're diving into what Homer and the biblical authors had in common, exploring how ancient literary techniques cross cultural boundaries in ways that will surprise you. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern scholarship. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep discovering.